Good morning, Australia.
And good afternoon, Texas.
How's
You're
things
wearing a
in?
jumper today because
Yes,
it's so
you
cold.
are.
It's really
Yes, you.
cold.
I'm in a
Yeah.
t-shirt. It's warm here. It's warm in Texas right now.
Right.
It's almost like summertime warm. It's 80 degrees Fahrenheit here.
Well, this is wintertime cold. We've got the heater on.
And it's springtime there, isn't it?
Well, yeah, it's almost
Yeah.
summer.
Well, you know what? I know something about our guest today, and she's very close to the North Pole, so she ought to be very, very cold. She's way up north. She's way up north from me, and I know she's quite a ways away from you.
Yeah.
You think we ought to
That's
call her
absolutely.
in?
Yeah, absolutely.
Go
Come
ahead.
on down. She's from Calgary.
Yes, it's Judith Cobb. Very good.
Yay.
Hey there.
Thanks for being on our program today, Judith.
Totally my pleasure. I was excited about this and I really appreciate the invitation here. We're going to have fun.
Oh, yeah. Tons. Chris, jump in.
So Judith, how long have you been an iridologist?
I started studying iridology in 1979.
Wow.
You can do the math. That's higher math in my
that's
house.
like 42 years. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
You must have started when you were very, very, very young.
I was just a pup, like I was 4. No, I was about 20.
Wow.
I was exactly 20 when I first was exposed to iridology.
Wow.
Excellent.
Well, what got you into iridology in the first place?
Oh, well, the story actually starts even before then. As a teenager, I was really interested in midwifery, in nutrition, and considering I came from a very medically modeled family, I was like, I must have been adopted, right? Because they were so, if something's wrong, you go to the doctor. And I was so, as a teenager, into, well, let's grind some wheat and make whole wheat bread because it's better for us than white bread, and things like that. And so I was doing that as a teenager. Then when I went to university and, sort of got a little more into how can I do things better with my diet, I met this really great guy. He was a hunk. He had a body. Oh, he was buff. Wow. He was funny. He was sweet. He was kind. He was gentle. He knew a little bit about herbs. He knew a little bit about iridology. He knew a little bit about Vitaflex. And we fell in love.
Oh, boy.
Uh-oh. And then we got married.
Yep.
And then I took everything that he taught me while we were courting. And his mom was a lay-trained herbalist and a ginsenging iridologist. And I actually went to work with her for a year. Wow. And that was my start. And, by then we had our first baby and I was taking him to work. And then we were pregnant with our second baby. And it was like, well, I can't take 2 babies to work with me. So I started my own business.
Wow. That's a good story.
I think it's a great story. I like to say I got into this business for love.
Yes.
Right. Yes. Because we actually celebrated our 41st anniversary this past summer.
That's great.
Wow. I hope my wife describes me like that. That was amazing.
I hope she does too. I
bet she does, Chris. I'm pretty sure she would.
Especially the hunky
Pretty sure she would. Especially the hunk part. Yeah, probably. She probably does.
Oh, that's great.
The fun thing about all this is that even though working with my mother-in-law was really great for that year, and she taught me what she knew, and I was able to start my business with that. Like so many iridologists, 5 or 6 or 7 years into this, I was getting frustrated with iridology. I was like this close to saying, bag this, because I'd been taught that the eyes would change. I was told, we can turn those brown eyes blue. Your eyes are full of toxins. When we clear those out, we're going to see your eyes clear up. We're going to see healing lines come in here. And it wasn't happening. And so I was getting super frustrated. At the time, I was also writing articles for Stephen Horn's publication, Nature's Field, right? And I had been invited to be a keynote speaker even further north than where I am, Kathy, a city 8 hours north of where I live.
Wow.
Wow.
People actually do live up there. It's a little town called Peace River. And I mean, their summers, the days are 22 hours long, and in the winter, their nights are 22 hours long, right? And so I was there doing my little thing, and I attended the other workshops, and there was a person there. His name was Robert Rogers. He's from Edmonton, which is 3 hours north of me. He was talking about iridology. I thought, this ought to be good. I wonder what he's got to say. And, you know, on the slide projector, he had Harry Wolf's iridology map. And I thought, I haven't ever seen that before. And I wrote down Harry Wolf and constitutional iridology and NIRA, if you remember, the National Iridology Research Association. I came back to my office, and on the back page of the latest edition of Stephen Horn's Nature's Field was an article by Bill Caradonna about constitutional iridology and NIRA. I'm going, okay, this is weird. So this is like 1992. I wrote away because there was no internet, and long distance was darned expensive back then, if you recall. I sent them a letter, and they sent me back a little leaflet of materials they had available, and I ordered everything. Their 3-part VHS video series, which, even though I don't have a player, I will never part with those. And their 5 sets of slides and notes.
Wow.
Awesome.
And I studied
a collector's item.
Oh, they are. I was thinking, you know, if I show these, are people from IPA going to try to break into my house and steal them? But I studied these things for hours, and it made sense. It's funny to see Harry Wolf on these because, well, he was a bit of a renegade back then. I think he still is, but love him to pieces. And from there, then the real turning point for me was I had an iridology camera. I had photos of a client's eyes. I had studied these things, and it wasn't making sense. These photos were just not making sense. So I thought, okay, I've got this phone number for NIRA. It was a Friday evening, like pretty late in the evening, like 7 o'clock my time, or 7 or 8. I thought, I'm just going to phone and leave a message, and maybe they'll call me back. And I thought it was Bill Caradonna's phone number. And so I phoned on, and somebody answered on the other end. And I said, hi, is Bill Caradonna there, please? He said, this is Bill. And I'm going, oh, I'm talking to Bill Caradonna. I got so excited. And I said, Bill, you don't know me. My name is Judith Cobb. He went, hey, wait a minute, Judith Cobb? I went, yeah. He said, the Judith Cobb? And I went, yeah. He said, the one that writes for Stephen Horn? I went, yeah. He said, I love your stuff.
Oh, awesome.
And I went, well, I love your stuff. So we had this little moment of mutual admiration. And then I said, Bill, I'm looking at this set of eyes. I wonder if you can help me. We didn't have the internet. I couldn't just, scan this and send it to him, or wasn't digital. It was a 4x6 print. And I said to him, I'm looking at an eye, and I described it in the constitutional language. And he said, oh, well, do you see this and this? And I said, no. He said, well, if you did, you would want to go this way with your interpretation. Do you see this and this? And I said, yes. He said, oh, then you need to take it this other direction. And it was like, huh, what? He can't see the photos, but he knows what I'm looking at. And he could teach me over the phone. And that just sealed it. It was like, okay, I need to bring this man up here. So we brought him to Calgary a couple of times to run certification programs, such as they were back then. So my first NIRA certification was in 1993. I'd had other certifications from other Jensenian teachers before that, but 93 was my first NIRA certification.
That is an incredible story.
Wow.
Yeah,
Well,
I love that.
I feel so blessed that things aligned, that I had that foundation in Jensenian, that, because I didn't know about iridology before meeting the guy that I fell in love with, not a clue. It just seemed like it was a natural thing that you do when you're working with herbs and nutrition. Mm-hmm. But it opened the pathway for me. It opened the ways so that when I saw constitutional and studied it, it was like, I don't even have anything to unlearn. I can just walk away from things that weren't working and move right into constitutional without even missing a beat.
Awesome.
That's such a great story.
It is a good story. I love it.
So you've been a member of NIRA and IPA for forever.
Well, I did let it go for a few years, I will admit. I've been a member for quite a while. And back then it wasn't quite the tight, cohesive organization that it is now. Back then it was pretty much just pay your fees and you get to put our name behind yours.
Yeah.
And there wasn't much support, maybe a newsletter or two every year. And it was a little bit discouraging, actually, because, paying for something in the US with Canadian dollars, that's always been a dear exchange. Yeah. And I finally had to let it go. It was like, well, I'm not getting value out of this. And so a few years back, when I decided to become a certified instructor, I renewed my regular membership and then went through the process to become an instructor. And I'm really seeing a growth in how what we now called IPA, right? Because it went NIRA, IRA, IPA. I'm seeing such a growth in what IPA is, even in the last 3 or 4 years.
Awesome.
That it's becoming pretty exciting to be tucked in with this group.
Good. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, me
well,
too.
we're honored to have you as one of our instructors. And I know you're one of the leading instructors, and we just couldn't be more pleased to have you as part of that IPA family.
Yeah.
So
Chris, my turn.
Yeah, it's your turn.
She's pushy, isn't she? So Judith, what is your favorite iris sign? You've seen a lot of irises in 41 years, I'm sure, but what's your favorite sign?
Well, an iris sign and a sclera sign.
Okay.
Cool. And this is because of what I am seeing as the actual pandemic. Okay. The actual pandemic that I see in the world is not the one that is in the media right now. It is the pandemic of insulin resistance. I know that by the year 2030 in North America, it is projected that 30% of North Americans will be insulin resistant.
Yeah.
To me, that's a far more serious pandemic than anything else that's going on out there, because that's affecting way more of the population than any other thing. Right. And the spill off from insulin resistance with obesity and heart disease and Alzheimer's and blood pressure and cholesterol and kidney failure and stroke and all of that is so huge. So my favorite signs in the iris, the gateway arch.
Okay. Awesome.
Right. Because that teaches us that there is a strong family predisposition towards blood sugar imbalances. And in the sclera, the fermentation sign.
Okay. Right.
Because when I see that, and when I know that this client, we've maybe talked a little bit about their diet already, and I know their diet is not what it should be, and I see this in the sclera, I can, put that up on my computer and say, do you see this? And they never have just one anymore.
Right.
4 or 5 years ago, maybe 6, 7 years ago, you might find one. Now I'm seeing in a set of eyes, like 5 or 6 or 7 of them.
Wow.
Right. And I can say, do you see all of these? These teach me that you're not managing your carbs well, your body's not handling it, and you are walking the path towards being insulin resistant, type 2 diabetic. Do you want to interrupt that now, or would you like to let it finish out?
There you go.
Wow. Now, please.
Yes.
Exactly. Yes. And they're all going, ah! I've had people break down in tears in my office going, oh, my dad has diabetes. I promised my children I would never do that. What do I need to do?
Great.
And we start with baby steps, crafting their program, few little changes at a time, not a drastic. We want habits to be firm and well entrenched. And so we start crafting that to begin reversing the process.
I love how you just phrased that. When you were speaking to your client, you said, your eyes teach me.
Yeah.
That's a key for all of us. Anyone practicing iridology today, take that little tidbit that Judith just gave us. Your eyes teach me. And use that phrase with your client, because that's exactly the exchange that it's supposed to be. We
That's
teach
gold.
them, and every eye we see teaches us.
Absolutely.
Oh, beautiful.
Love it.
That was good. That was really good.
Yeah.
That's going to stick with me. I'm just going to absorb that just for a second. That's good. Okay. So we're now in the part of our little program where we have a Q&A.
Yep.
And we have our little pegboard here, our little, I hope you can see that. And we have a number system of 1 through 36. So if you'd be so happy as to choose a number, I'll get you a question.
How about if we do number 36?
Wow. Our
We'll go
first
for the
36.
very end.
Well, it could have been number 1.
It could have been.
Okay, let's see. Okay, here we go. Every time I visit my iridologist, she tries to sell me tons of products. She always has the latest health food or magic pill. I know that I cannot spend excess money on supplements outside of digestive enzymes and a few herbal formulas. How can I tell her I don't feel I need all the products she is suggesting?
That is a really, really excellent question. And it's one that I think most of us have heard from our clients. I want to start with this from the perspective of the practitioner. If practitioners, okay, this is my opinion. If practitioners are selling product, I think they need to be very careful, to be very focused on a couple of things. Number one, what the client actually needs. And number two, what is the client's diet and lifestyle like? Okay. From the client's perspective, the client needs to be investing the time and the energy to do the diet and lifestyle work, because when they do that, it will minimize the amount of supplements they need. So I think it would be wise for a client in that situation to do a couple of things. Number one is to be really good at following instructions on diet and lifestyle. Number two, let their practitioner know that they have implemented these changes and what they are feeling for the result of doing that.
Yeah.
And then they need to be very clear about what their budget is.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because
yeah,
if we don't show respect for our clients in that way, I don't know what the economy is like where everybody else is. I know where I'm at. My city is an oil patch city, and our oil patch has collapsed. We have the highest unemployment rates we've seen in decades.
Wow.
And if I've got any of those people, when they were in the oil patch, they had no problems coming and spending, whatever money. Now, if they come in because their income is way reduced, they don't have the same kind of money. And I need to be very aware that they can spend their money once or they can spend it twice. And by that, I mean, they can spend it once and spend it well at the grocery store. And if they're not willing to do that, they're going to have to spend their money again on supplements.
Mm-hmm.
So I always want to know what's going on in my client's life. I want to know what they do for employment. I always ask what you do for employment. And, you know, if it's a situation where they're saying, yeah, my husband just got laid off and we're working on my teacher salary. It's like, okay, I get it. So let's really focus on food. Are you willing to really make some dietary changes and change some lifestyle things? Then we can work with a minimal amount of supplements. So that question that you asked, Kathy, is really a two-way street, and it requires great communication, and it requires really good honesty on the part of both parties.
Yeah. What a great answer.
It was
I
a
love
beautiful answer. That was perfect. I don't know that I can even add anything to that, but Chris, do you,
for me,
do you have a thought?
I will. For me, I always I'm not someone who gives people lots of remedies. I always try and do some lifestyle advice. I do a mixture of things, but I always try and limit things to about 3 things, possibly a probiotic, possibly a herbal tincture, and possibly maybe some flower essences. However, sometimes I write like a plan for people, like stage 1, let's desensitize to your allergies, and stage 2, we'll do a bit of a detox, and stage 3. And sometimes people say, well, can I do stage 1 and 2 together? Because they do have the funds, and you know they've got the time and the commitment. So like I like to give people options, and then they go from there. Right? Like I don't want them to walk out with like 100 things. I mean, having said that, there was a guy yesterday who I saw, and he's going to do some desensitizing to his allergies with homeopathics, and I recommended a integrated detox program, and he said, I want to do it all now. And I'm like, oh God, because he is going to walk out with, you know, a couple of bags. But, you know, that was his choice. And he's not going to see me. He's not able to see me for 3 months. So he said, let's just do it now. I don't want to do it by post. So, yeah. So I think it's giving people the options is important.
I think so too.
I do the same thing with clients. I make the suggestions for the food. I ask them, are you willing to stop what's causing the problem? And if they're not, there's not a whole lot we can do about that. I only carry a few specialty products in my office now. I probably carry more essential oils than anything, but I work a lot with behaviors and emotions, which I feel like that's the best way to go with the emotions and the behaviors, is to go down that essential oil path. But I'll write a list of things that they need to change. I'll write a small list of products I think would enhance their well-being, and I'll leave it to them to go get those things. But just like you said, it's that inter exchange of one to another. If they're not willing to put forth the work, there's not a lot we can do to help them. So you were spot on, I believe, with that answer, Judith. That's great. It's great.
And I think we as iridologists get a lot of what I call curiosity seekers. You know, people who've heard about iridology and they treat it almost like it's a crystal ball, if you will, right? That we can see everything and we can tell them everything. And sometimes they're, no, pretty much always, they're the ones that are disappointed when we start doing it, and we're not going to go through every marking we see in their eye. We're not going to tell them what happened when they were 4 and when they were 6 and when they were 8 and what happened last week and what they had for supper yesterday. Right? They get disappointed. I don't know where they get the idea that we have these superpowers, but those that really get iridology, that let us teach them what iridology is and how it works, we can have such great responses with them.
Absolutely.
And we can even keep going back to the same set of eyes for the full year. I like to reshoot eyes about once a year if I can. And we can keep going back to that same set of eyes for the full year, because as their symptoms change, the questions we want to ask from their eyes and the interpretation of the eyes will also shift, even though it's the same picture.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, I have loved this time that we've spent with you. It's been incredible. It's been incredible. We're going to have you back again for sure.
Yeah.
All right.
And it's lovely. I've met you many times, but I've just learned so much more about you today.
Yes. Yes. Well, this has been awesome, and we want to get this message out. That's our mission, is to put iridology into households. So it's another household word like massage therapy or going to get a haircut. I'm going to see my iridologist. So we want it to be that positive experience for our clients. And no better way than to just get it out and let's broadcast it and introduce the world to our iridologists and iridology instructors as well. So we thank you for being a part of iridology around the world.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Okay.
My pleasure.
Well, I'm going to say good day to Oz. I'm going to say good afternoon to Calgary.
Thank you. And good afternoon, Texas.
Thank you. All right.
Bye, Texas and
Bye.
Australia.